This is my story, David White, me, and one of my many childhood experiences. I've told this story a few times to people and the response has been I should write a book about it. I have actually contributed to several since, but never actually included this story in any of them. I was reminded recently that this should be out there, and so I've recorded this for you to hear, and I hope you find it interesting and useful. Personally, I think this is a perfectly innocent story of growing up, which there are many variations. This is one of my childhood stories. When I was young, about 11, perhaps 12, I just moved with my family to Newcastle, and I was seriously interested in electronics, and so I built a Morse code machine, as much as a 12-year-old or 11-year-old could. Possibly not my proudest moment. It consisted of a piece of balsa wood, a battery, a bulb, some wires, and it was all held together with some tacks and paper clips. Not the best construction, but it worked. It was, of course, extremely flimsy, and I'd be lucky if it would hold together for more than a few minutes. I never really got to find that out, as I only knew SOS, and I never really played with it for more than a couple of minutes. I mean, this was 100% boys' toy. Short attention span too. I was so pleased I wanted others to have it and find out about it. What boy would not love one of these? I wrote out an advertisement for it by hand. I wrote the ad out as many times as I could, and in fact I managed to write it out 8 times on an A4 page. I did not have much paper at home, not because of cost, we just didn't have much that day, which was good because I wrote and wrote and wrote until my hands were sore. So maybe I wrote 2 pages. I can't really remember, but it seemed like a lot at the time, but probably not nearly as much as I thought. I cut the paper into strip ads, probably badly. I then spent the afternoon with a school friend after school before I went to bed with a friend, popping them through the front doors of all the houses near to where I just moved to, and we did this in our school uniform. And then I waited. Well, sometime that evening, to everyone's surprise, not mine, came a knock at the door, and through the window we could see that it was a man, and he was wearing a uniform. At first we all thought I was going to get into trouble. We thought it might be a policeman. It turned out to be the local boys brigade leader, the equivalent to the Boy Scouts in my area. He expressed an interest in my advertisement and asked if he could see the Morse code machine. Well, with a great deal of pride I scurried off. I found it, fixed all the pins, gave it a quick test, it still worked, and ran back to the front door, clutching my invention. I proudly proceeded with a demonstration, and the man pointed out that I would need at least 2, one at either end, a receiver and a transmitter. I asked him a few more questions and quickly discovered that there were about 30 boys in his troop. I thought I was onto a gold mine. To me, a large amount of money at that time was 10 pence, and I was starting to realise that this could generate pounds. I was invited to come along to the next Boys Brigade meeting, which was the very next night. I gladly accepted, and with a twinkle in his eye the Boys Brigade leader left. I joined the Boys Brigade and mostly spent the evenings playing football with all the other boys, eventually getting my own uniform, and some weekends we would march around town. Needless to say, I never sold a single Morse code machine. In fact, it was never mentioned again. I learned many things, many lessons from this experience. First one, of course, it didn't take a lot for me to get excited. Secondly, B, I put a lot of work into things. C, I had a real short attention span even back then. D, I had some basic, some crude commercial mind at a young age. E, by creating a focus I created a conversation piece. F, I discovered that activity breeds results, something that would pound into me many years later when I did a little bit of work for Xerox. G, people came to seek me out when I put information out there, which is really important. H, the outcome, the result was a good one, very good, and it lasted a long time. The results are not always what you expect. And I also learned that the reward does not have to be in money to be satisfying. I came to realise that perhaps I was not a born salesman. And lastly, experience is everything. I went on in my career and developed as an electronics engineer. I won an apprenticeship where I stayed for 6 years. I then ran my first business based on a keyboard I developed for 3 years, and then I joined Xerox as a salesperson. I stayed with them for 2 years. Since then I've spent the vast majority of my life running Web Optimizer, and although there have been a few troubles, .com crash, etc., I've consistently earned an above average income. My biggest learning, if you like, is that I've learned a lot at every stage of my career, usually when I least expected to. For a few years now, I've taken it for granted that life is a lifelong learning exercise. Funny thing is, the more I do, the more I learn. And now I've switched things around. I now spend time deliberately learning new tricks, and I've discovered that I earn more as a result of learning more.